Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in always sunny Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Michael Mcclanahan, the Vice President of Virtual Estimates Now and Flooring Install America. What we're going to talk about this week, you want to know about it, you want to love it. It's markups and margins. Are they the same thing? They both get you more money on a product you purchased than you're going to pass on to your client, right? So are they the same thing? How do we know what percentage we're even supposed to be using for our business to make us money? And then what do we do with it? What's a healthy number? Where do I need to be at? How do I figure out where I need to be at? So Michael's no stranger to any of this. He whether it's doing work with Virtual Estimates Now and helping people be able to get estimates through a website, or with Flooring Install America and putting out the labor for installs. He knows what he's doing. This isn't his first rodeo. He's been in flooring forever. He's going to let you know. Before we get started, what's Floor Academy? Why are we here? Well, we're going to talk business because I want to help you on a weekly basis get a little nugget that you can take, apply to your business, and go from owning a job as a contractor to owning an actual business, turn it into an asset, something that's worth more than your tools and your trailer after you've put in 20, 30, 40 years. I see too many folks, men, women, they get to the end of their career, they need to move to sales, they're going to go be a rep or something, and they put everything up and they say, well, here's my trailer, I need $20,000. You do 20, 30, 40 years in a trade and you're going to turn it in for your tools. Man, that's rough. If you got some systems, you got some processes, and you can show how you can generate, I'm putting $5 in, I'm getting $100 out, or $5 in, I'm getting $1,000 out, and you can repeat that process. Now you've got something you can sell. I want to help you do that. That's why we're here. Michael, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Oh boy. Well, I was born to a flooring installer way back in the 50s.
I'm sorry.
In the Midwest. Right.
I'm not. No,
And
that's awesome, actually.
I object to put a time limit on that because, quite frankly, I think that I can still at my age compete with any of the 30-year-olds out there. Maybe not as quickly from a movement standpoint, but certainly as a productivity standpoint, I can. Born as a flooring installer, was raised in that business, and quite frankly, been in and out of this all of my life. Done some wholesale things for manufacturers in California and distributors, and got deeply involved in the flooring installation side of it for major box stores in the mid-90s.
Okay.
And the Big Orange box was the big one that we embarked on, which was eye-opening. I think that was the experience that made me start to understand the model for profitability for retailers, but also for flooring installation companies.
Okay.
Which fascinating movement. And I've been doing that ever since mid-90s, working primarily with box stores, but also with retailers and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of installers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Working with a box store through the labor end of it, I can imagine that you've worked with hundreds of people. There's the local workrooms for the box stores. Each one of them is hundreds of guys, and it's just an ever revolving door of people and projects going in and out. But it's interesting that you say that was what brought you to profitability and understanding it truly. And especially since I think a lot of people get a bad taste in their mouth about workrooms, because it's one of these things where the box store hires a company to sub it out. That company subs it out, right? There's a lot more hands in the pie. And
there absolutely is. What started the eye-opening part of this was what I'll just say at Home Depot called a line item review. And this is where it began. And quite frankly, this is the days of Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, where they're trying to figure out how to make something work well. And their concept was throw it at the wall. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it. Make a lot of mistakes. Mistakes will make you better. So this is what happened. And the line item review was simply what Home Depot looked at this labor, one of the first, aside from Sears and Roebuck, from a standpoint is what is our cost? If our cost is $1, then we have to charge a margin for us to make money as a retailer.
Okay.
So each go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead and finish the thought, and then I'll dig into it.
So this is where then, and I hear a lot of retailers saying, let's just throw a price at them. Yeah, that doesn't work. Each movement that we make as an installer, we sell time.
Yes.
That's what we do for a living. And so if we are tearing out carpet, time. If we are removing and replacing baseboard, that's time. If we're removing and replacing a toilet, there's time. Each one of these has a cost to it as an individual installer, as what I understand that you do, Kyle. You go out and install projects.
Correct.
Each one of that has a cost to it. If a retailer is going to sell that, they need a margin. Clear as a bell. We might as well embrace that as installers, that is the way it's always going to be. So then comes the negotiation. And as you're negotiating with a big retailer like this, they're saying, well, okay, so for 100 square feet of hardwood, you want X amount of dollars. What if we give you 8,000 square feet of hardwood? And then their concept is, well, it's volume, so therefore the price should be reduced. What that did for us as installers and installation companies, we began to examine how do we make the process quicker, more efficient, still doing it correctly, and still become more productive so that we can lower the price, so therefore we can support that volume.
Okay. So first, you've used the word margin twice. So first, I want to start there, okay? Because this happens all the time, and this is where I think a lot of the audience probably struggles, is markup and margin. And they're used interchangeably all the time, but they are not the same thing. So what is markup and what is margin, so we can even understand where to start this process?
Well, if we were to define markup, it's saying, gee, I got something for $1, I'm going to mark it up another $1 and get $2. I mean, it's really that basic. And in car sales, for example, quite frankly, they work from cost. The car salesman, literally, if the cost of a car is $2,000, if they can sell it for $3,000, they get 25% of that. And that's the way a car salesman will think, right? Okay. He's not thinking about margin. He's not thinking any other, but he's thinking about, is it worth it to me to sell this car for $250 if I get an extra $1,000, right?
Okay.
Or $4,000, then I get $500. So that's kind of a markup concept. Margin, from the beginning of time, literally in retail, 3,000 years ago, the 35% margin was what was written in stone. And that margin is only arrived at, essentially what that is the profit is 35% of the total price. And how you arrive there from a cost standpoint, if you take $1 and divide it by 0.65, you arrive at $1.52 or $1.51.
Whoops.
And what you note is that 35% of that $1.53 is your margin or gross profit.
Correct. Okay. And so I like it. It gets rough at $1, right? Because it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to be at a 35% margin, because you're talking about $1.54, or if you put a 35% markup on it, you're going to take 1 times 0.35, you get 35 cents. And so you're $1.35. And then if you put a 35% margin on it, you're getting $1.54. Not Correct. Too big of a spread at that point, right? But a lot of times, folks, we're dealing with thousands of dollars, or
thousands.
Let's talk about a $30 item that you're going to go do. So 30 times 1.35 is $40.50, whereas 40 divided by 0.65 for the margin is $61.54. Now we're talking a $20 spread.
Correct.
That is a huge difference. So it's you, and I've seen it in groups where people are like, "Oh, standard is it's not even 35% anymore. It's people are trying to tell you that it's 30% and it's a 30% markup." Man, that's so much money is getting left on the table because people don't know what they're talking about. It's scary.
Well, first of all, if I was actually schooled in this by a comptroller, certified public accountant as well, one of the companies that I was working for that locked in the concept to me as to what this really means. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is markup, however that came into play, is a moot point. It's something that should never be considered because a margin is the way metrics are balanced in the accounting field. And if you're going to speak the same language, si je parle français maintenant, tu comprends rien. If I speak another language, nobody's getting it. And margin is the world of accounting. This is the way it works. So the markup really does. I know where a lot of people come, and I used to do the same thing, to be honest with you. I was a kid going, margin, and I would say, 30% margin, great. And I would do precisely what you're doing, take it times 1.3. That's not a margin. Mm-hmm. That's just it's a mathematical equation that's actually inaccurate if you're speaking in accounting terms.
I think that's a great way to put it. And this is why we need to be more than artisans doing installations. Right. And we need to if we went and even as a sole proprietor, please don't be a sole proprietor. Please go open up an LLC and protect yourself some. But the minute you formed an LLC, you formed a business. You are no longer just an installer. You are now a business owner. You need to understand business. That's where this conversation comes in. And I think it's a super important one to understand the difference. And so we're going to operate on margins. We need to understand them. I don't think any company could be anywhere close to profitable at anything less than a 30% gross profit margin. So you're any number you're dealing with, you're going to take, you would divide by 0.7 on that. But
and that depends on margin or depends on volume, quite frankly, because it can be done. In the orange box circumstances that we went through, they came at us later, 3 years later, after we were in 12 locations
okay.
and set up and sat there, and they saying, we would like you to work off of a 20% margin now and put a lot of now that's a negotiation. I'm not blaming them because they were in business as well, right? So they came at us and said, you need to work on this. And we worked hard to try to figure out if that was even possible to support our warehouses in these markets, to support the entire administration department that we had that was putting it together. But by this time, we had metrics. We had massive metrics because we did thousands of jobs. We knew how many linear feet of metal was used on the average carpet job. We knew how many T-moldings was being done on a pergo job. We knew so many metrics, and we were able to take those metrics and analyze them and boil this down if it could be possible. I will tell you that did not result in us doing that. However, it pushed us back. We did lower our margins to accommodate. And this was also, by the way, we were on the front end of these people going into free installation. We calculated that program for them. And the labor was in there.
Well, of course, look, everyone knows.
Disguised.
Yeah, nothing's free, right? It's either, I know a lot of it, like if they offer that these days, it's in the padding. If they're doing a carpet, like the padding through the box stores is generally ridiculously priced. And
it is.
That's the way
that's you get. That's what the labor is.
Correct. Look, nothing's free. We know that. I don't know why people get upset. Who cares if they get free label, right? The money's in the equation somewhere. Now it's a matter of, are you just more expensive than them, and how do you better sell? So I think you're wasting your time if that's what you're worried about, folks. Like, that is the least of your worries. Go understand the concepts to be able to go make the same offer yourself.
Here's what you can do is ask them, look, buy the product from me and then go over to Home Depot and get the free installation. It's that simple.
There you
if
go.
They're giving it away for free, easy. Mm-hmm. But most people get it. Look, the smoke and mirrors today, it's Smoke and mirrors has been around forever.
Oh yeah.
There's a guy in the alley going, "Hey, you want to buy a Rolex for $12?" Really? Probably not true, right? Pet-proof carpet. What is that?
Yeah. Well, it's all gimmicky, right?
I mean, really.
It's anything to attract attention to try and be able to make the offer. That's really
Absolutely.
what they're doing. And so with this focus on how do we figure these things out, right? You had metrics, and I think that's super important that you're talking about. You had a bunch of installs, thousands, to go back and look at the numbers. And I don't know that
Go
people
ahead.
are folks. I don't know that folks are doing that. So where do you even start, right? Do you need a fancy program to track all of this stuff for you, or do I need to just spend a Saturday and take out the past 6 months worth of estimates and start tracking some numbers in a spreadsheet, and then moving forward I can just start adding new
Well,
things in, right? Like, where do I even start to track these numbers, and what do I want to be tracking?
okay. So in the beginning, and I'm going to break this down into real simple stuff to start with, because this can then expand into massive amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just, in theory, there's 28 questions that have to be asked to a customer to get an estimate on a flooring installation. Has nothing to do with product particularly, aside from they do have to choose a product. But
Correct.
there's 28, technically there's 28 questions.
Interesting.
But let's break it down into the simplest ones. You're going to be installing what product? Laminate. Great. Would you like us to tear out the carpet? Yes. Would you like us to remove and replace baseboard? Yes. Would you like us to move your furniture for you? Yes. So we've just gotten through like 5 questions there.
Mm-hmm.
If you are entering those into any system, including QuickBooks, including Floors app, including Q Floors, including RFMS. Back in the day, we were using RFMS and it was still DOS. And yet we could print reports that were just massive of all of those line items.
Okay.
Those line items are the answer to this, meaning that every installer, first of all, they need the SKUs of what they're doing for a living. What do you do for a living? You're installing hardwood. So you're tearing out hardwood, you're tearing out tile, you're tearing out linoleum. You have to have a SKU. If you never tell the customer that you're doing that in your pricing, you still have to document this. Otherwise, you never get to that end information that you need, right? And with that, if you're going to work for another retailer, that retailer is going to be your customer, right?
Correct.
What are you pitching to them? Well, I do laminate install, I tear out carpet, I move appliances, I move this. You got to negotiate every single line item with that retailer to negotiate a deal. And if that retailer can then produce to you a work order that lists you're doing the laminate install, customers doing their own carpet tear out, so you arrive, you're expecting that to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to do the baseboard. Now it's clear to you what your job tests are. And you do that for short time. You probably have this information, Kyle. No doubt you do. And you start to put it into columns.
I mean, yeah. At one point, I was tracking a lot of stuff. So it's, I talk a lot on here about, I have a spreadsheet I made to figure out what people should charge per day. Right. And so we look at how many days a year do you want to work? How much money a year do you want to make? How much overhead do you have, whether it's your vehicle, your gas, disposal fees? It has, I don't know, 20, 30 things that you can fill out. And then it asks you, like, how long is this going to be in service for? Is this a taxable or non-taxable item? As in, are you going to spend that money this year? Or, like, if you're getting a new work truck in 5 years, it becomes a taxable item because you have to hold on to that money and accumulate it over the 5 years. And then at the very end, it says, hey, you didn't include any profit. Like, how much profit do you want a year? And then it spits you out a number and it says, you should charge this much per day. And so that was what helped me figure out what I needed to charge per day. And then what I did was I started studying, well, how long does it take me to remove the 800 square feet of carpet on this project? How long does it take me to remove the 500 square feet of tile? How long does it take me to remove and install the 300 linear feet of baseboards? And I started doing all these time studies. So now I have a time study, and then I have a number, and I can do these time studies over a month or 2 months and get a bunch of data. And I take that and I divide it by my number. So no matter what task I do now, they all equal the same hourly rate because I have to make $1,100 a day, and everything I'm doing will equate to me making that $1,100 a day. I don't care if I'm moving furniture, removing a toilet, removing carpet. Everything should pay me the same because that's part of my day and I'm selling a day. So that's the way I went about it. I don't know that that's, I see guys that, if they're going to grind a floor, it's 85 an hour. And if they're doing self level, it's this an hour. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me why your time is valued differently per task, right? It's generally a handyman's going to come out, and if he's 35 an hour, he's 35 an hour. It doesn't matter what he's doing or what she's doing for you. So why would in the flooring industry we be any different? My rate is my rate, and you can either accept it or deny it, right? You can go find somebody that's cheaper. You can probably find someone that's more expensive, but I need X amount to make my numbers work. And so I didn't go and find margins out per se. I guess I could go back and rework numbers and really figure that out. I looked at it more as like, what did I need to support my lifestyle? And then how do we work that out? And I kind of worked my square footage rates backwards.
Well, your premise is not wrong. Now, this is a whole different thing because, quite frankly, margins don't even really come into play as a single installer that's wanting to make a living. In fact, I've hired, again, thousands of installers. Mm-hmm. And because if you can imagine, we have Home Depot in the center of this charging retail or their retail, and then we're taking 2/3 of that money for us, and then we're running installers on the side. Obviously, the installers then are going to get paid less, right?
Yeah.
So our job was actually and we are advocates for installers. We protect installers. We teach installers. We teach installers not how to install. We teach them how to be nice to customers, and kind and easygoing. Because again, we're in their houses for anywhere from 1 day to 3 weeks, yes, oftentimes.
Soft skills
that's
are
a
very
relationship. Mm-hmm. That's like dating, right?
Yes.
Really. So with that in mind, it comes to a place, and you came up with a number of, I need $1,100 a day. Okay. And this is where most installers would like to be able to base their life on. In the industry, it's called checking a truck. One guy.
Correct.
Right? So he needs X amount of dollars. Well, okay, so he needs $500 a day, let's say. And with that, in his movement, he's finding he's making $300 a day. But based on the prices he's being paid, but also because of his productivity. I'll give you an example. When you go into a basement that's full of carpet and you're going to be putting down laminate, you have to get rid of the carpet, right?
Correct.
Okay, but there's furniture in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Here's what we learned, and we learned this in competition. We take all the furniture, we move it 8 feet off the wall, leave it in the same room, 8 feet off the wall, cut the carpet out, install the floor, put the furniture back on top of the floor. Don't take it out of the room. Why? Because that made us faster and more productive, and the job got done quicker. Suddenly your income went up. Your hourly rate went up simply by doing the job differently.
Yeah.
And see, that's a part of what each individual has to decide on. Now, the dollar amount, I heard your dollar amount, and I'm not objecting to it.
Correct.
That makes sense. Okay, so you need that amount. So now it's just a matter of, and in your case, you're exclusive to yourself, mostly.
Correct.
So with that in mind, the way you present yourself, the way you sell your job, the confidence that you establish with that customer, even if they're shopping Craigslist, you're licensed in Arizona, you're a nice guy, you got a good business, you're going to be able to get that additional money for something. And that is the key to this. Automatically just saying, I get more money because I get more money, you must be doing something correct to be able to get it. Those customers like you, and hence then you're listening to the customer, you're paying attention to the customer, And then you're exceeding their expectations. Otherwise, you won't be getting more money as time goes on. In fact, you won't be in business.
Correct. I mean, I think that's the way I figured it, right? This is what it costs me to live the way I want to live and make the money I want to make and support my business so I can be around and have the bank account to, if something happens, I don't need to wait on insurance. I can just take care of my client. So that was all very helpful. The other side of that spreadsheet is actually kind of interesting because I have an employee calculator on it. And I think this is where the margin game starts kind of coming in. And so what I did is I was like, okay, well, how much do you got to pay the person? What do you need to match on federal taxes for them? And it starts coming up with, what does it actually cost you, right? If that person's at $25 an hour and you want to provide them with an IRA and you want to give them a week's vacation, it starts calculating out what you actually pay them an hour. And then I just said, okay, so if this person goes from, you have them at 25 and it comes out to 32.50, you got to multiply that by 2. So I need that person to make me $65 an hour. Okay, because it's 32.50 times 2, so we just put a 50% profit margin on that. And a lot of people are going to freak out. Oh, you're taking advantage of them. How dare you make money on that person's back?
It's got to be built in. Again, I'm going to point out something else. In our company since 1999, we have never, ever sold any labor cost to a customer by hours. And here's why. Because you tell them on the estimate it's going to take 3 hours to prep your floor. And oftentimes, even in perceptions, sometimes they literally come downstairs with a stopwatch and watch you do it. And that is true.
Yeah, I believe it.
Right. And so at the end of the day, a job task is a job task. And hence then employees, and I'll give you another example of employees. The company that I was with for many years, one of the, aside from Romanoff, was Crew 2 out of Minneapolis, ProFloor back then. They were union. Out of Minneapolis. And their boys back in 1998 were making $28 an hour, union, drove company trucks, never spent a dime on supplies. They had a 401k plan. They had insurance. And the price of installing a square foot of hardwood in 1999 was $5.75. Nailed on. Because of the cost of that.
Yeah.
The highest prices in this country was in Minneapolis, Hawaii, and Alaska for labor. Hence, then, something needed to begin to change for retailers to be able to actually sell projects because the prices were just out of control. So therefore, subcontractors, and the truth of the matter is in the flooring industry, most guys love the idea of being independent and being a subcontractor.
Yes.
But since they don't have a lot of experience at it, they don't quite understand how to manage that. And you're right, an LLC or an S Corp is a good idea. And you becoming an employee of your corporation.
Correct.
And paying yourself literally a salary and keeping your profits in the business, that is the best way to grow. Because a lot of guys, the Craigslist guys going, yeah, I'll do your job for $1,000, but I want cash. Oh, you're really not going anywhere that way.
Well, no, because you paid the bills for the week. Well, you paid the bills for the week, and you're avoiding the tax man, right? I get offered cash, and I'm like, sorry, I can't buy a house with that.
You're not avoiding the tax man because, believe me, you're going to ultimately end up my age and want to retire and go, what do you mean $200 Social Security?
Well, that's
right. There's
correct.
That.
Yeah. Well, it's just not. It's not long term thinking. So I guess where I was going with it was, okay. So if I'm gonna, I think people think employers try and take advantage of installers, right? I'm not worried about selling to the client on a $1 per hour basis, but I need to pay my employees on a $1 per hour basis. I don't have to. That's what I would choose to do. But essentially, if I'm going to provide the tools and the insurance and I back the job, I'm entitled to a certain amount of money to run the company. So if I presented it as, okay, so if I need $1,100 a day to operate for me to live, right? I have to go sell the install, do all these things.
All the administration, the billing, etc.
Exactly. I could
transporting materials.
Yep. What I could do is find two installers to both operate at $1,100 a day, and I'll pay them a 50% total compensation package. So they get $550 a day each, and then I'm going to still walk away with $1,100. So I can still pay myself my salary. The company still ends up with profit, so I can continue to provide the truck, the trailer, the tools, the insurance, back up the installs, go do the installs, do the deliveries, all these things that all these two guys have to do for $550 a day is show up and do the install, right? They're going to get my truck, my trailer, they're going to drive there, be able to do all their stuff. So is that a fair deal? Because there's no, right, and this is where it gets interesting. Like, people will argue, oh, you're taking advantage of them, and I don't think so. Like, I worked out the margins to be able to provide for them. It's a full-time job to be able to go sell enough work to provide $2,200 in labor per day for two guys.
Correct.
That's a lot of work to provide.
No, I agree. Well, see, there's dilemmas in every state with this, but more and more licensing has come into play, and registration. If it's not licensing, it's registration. But as a licensed contractor in Arizona, and I'm licensed in half a dozen states across the West, the fact of the matter is, and California is the worst, I will tell you, because quite frankly, if you go out and install without a contractor's license, it can be a felony.
Yes.
And it's a 3-strike state. So look out. Third time you do that, you go to prison for the rest of your life. Wow. For trying to make a living. But in a licensed state, you cannot hire a subcontractor that is not licensed.
Well, yes, that's what the law says.
Right. No, I get you can do it, but believe me, the interesting part of that, there's reasons for this, and not that I agree with all of them, but just real briefly on the license subject, the reason I agree with the license subject is because the playing field needs to be even. And everyone should be registered or licensed for two reasons. First of all, it evens the playing field. Second, a customer needs to have a place to go if they have a problem where some of these guys run off. And the truth of the matter is that's what licensing really, really does. And I even checked on your license a couple of weeks ago. If I had a complaint today on your job and I couldn't get a hold of you, I can go directly to them. And believe me, that contractors board will find you.
Yes, they will.
And if you don't respond to the contractors board, they send it to the attorney general as if it's a crime. So I think that's a good thing.
It's not, yeah. It right? is, right? Well, there's protection for the homeowners, and I think that's what it's all about, right? So I have to carry a bond. So if I screw up a job, there's at least,
that's
I think at my size, there's like, correct, there's like $4,500 sitting there that can go towards it. And if you get absolutely screwed, I have to pay into the recovery fund. So the state has a bunch of money just sitting there to help homeowners when they get completely screwed over. Yeah, all the time. So
it happens all the time.
Well, I think it's a money grab from the state, and people should just have better ethics and moral values. I agree that there should be some way to hold people accountable and help the homeowners out because they do get screwed. And so licensing's annoying.
Now consider this concept.
It's there.
Once you hire an employee, and this is true for retailers as well, and this should answer a big question for all of us. Once you hire an employee as an installer at $28 or $55 or whatever it is, and that guy goes out and punches a hole in the water heater and it floods the entire job, there is no recourse to that employee.
Correct.
They can only hold you responsible as if you are an independent contractor. And that is why, and on top of that, your costs are fixed. I negotiate with a subcontractor and he's licensed. I'm going to pay him $2 a square foot. My margin, I get $3 a square foot. I got $1 going on. Fair game. I make sure he has insurance, which only covers accidents and weird things that happen. It does not cover bad installs.
Correct.
A bond is a great idea. concessionaire's bond so that you can cash out if the guy disappears. But at the end of the day, in a subcontractor world, your costs are fixed. It makes it easier to create those margins in your world to go forward. Employees, I will tell you that we had employees in Minneapolis that went out on a job at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 2 o'clock they were sitting in a bar, and then they finally arrived back at the shop at 5 o'clock and added 3 more hours at $28 an hour for two of them onto the roster. Mm-hmm. Hence, then that was impossible to manage.
I believe it. Well, I've interviewed a gentleman out of like up there in Rockford, Illinois, I believe, and he got a call from a buddy, and he was like, "Hey man, you know your guys like over here at the lake fishing?" I was like, "No."
Right.
So he was getting paid to fish, but he was done. So now there's everyone's got to log into the GPS, and they get tracked, and he can know their location. So that can't happen. And it sucks. You can't trust people. So I like that. This is where people try and do this, and I don't want to go too far down this road. So we'll kind of wrap this up, and then we'll get back onto the actual like figuring out margins and stuff. But this is where that shadiness of the construction industry comes in, where it's like, well, you're my 1099 employee. No, I could be a subcontractor, or I can be an employee. People want the fixed cost structure of a subcontractor, like you mentioned. You can really easily calculate your costs, but they want to be able to dictate how it all gets done. And that's not how this works. You can either hand a work order over to a subcontractor and say, here you go do it, right? They need to provide all the tools. They need to be able to complete the work as according to spec. Or you can give it to an employee and say, you go do it exactly this way. And you can control every aspect of when they show up, how they show up, like absolutely everything. And so pick your poison, right? Do you want to trust everybody to fulfill what they're doing and have a cost fixed structure? Or can you find a way to keep people motivated and happy, and you can pay them as employees, and then you get to dictate how the work is done? I think that's probably the easiest way to sum up that argument of which one do you want. But going back to what you mentioned earlier, I think the dream of being an entrepreneur and being your own boss and controlling your own destiny is sold to a lot of people in the construction industry, and it shouldn't be, because they have no reason to be a business owner, because it's literally I only know how to trade time for X amount of money, but they don't know what that money means, where it comes from, where it goes, how to use it. They would honestly be better off being an employee and having their life dictated to. Now, are there a lot of great companies out there? No. So that's where it becomes a problem, is people can't fit in or find a place to be treated well. So it's better for them to go do it poorly than it is to go find a place to be treated well.
Well, that's interesting you say that too, because in premise, I have a flooring installation background. I can walk onto your job tomorrow, and I can watch what's going on there for 3 minutes, and I can jump right in with no words and begin doing your job right alongside you, right?
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying? I can. I know I
Correct.
Can. At the same time, then me managing installers over the years, I have a connection with these guys. I know what they go through. I understand. I also have a connection with the other side. I'm sitting with the big wigs at Home Depot and every other big box store going, yeah, guys, okay, well, hang on. This whole thing has to be advocate, if you will.
Yes.
Inside of that movement and that balance to get it right. But if installers don't feel respected, they don't do a good job. And if they feel as if they just are not being appreciated, they don't do a good job. And you have a good point, which I saw it. Yes, we should be a part of the conversation, a big part of the conversation, not all of it. Because again, there's a lot of stuff that salespeople on the sales floor go through too.
Correct.
That a lot of installers would not have a clue about. However, they get the backside information because while they're in their house for that week or 2 weeks or 2 days, The customer does nothing but talk about the process they just went through at the store, what the salesman did, how they were late getting the estimate in, or how wonderful they did it simultaneously.
Yes.
We have that information. We have it all. And we have hours and hours. That salesperson spent 3 hours with them. We spend 80.
Yes.
We have a lot of information. And should be part of the conversation. In fact, retailers should want to know what we know. They really should.
Mm-hmm. It definitely, there needs to be this is in no way do I advocate for installers are the most important part of the industry. Okay. Someone's got to make it. Someone's got to sell it. Someone's got to install it. It's a triangle.
It'd be crippling without us. Absolutely. That's true.
So it's a triangle. Okay. There's 3 parts to it. Someone's got to make it. Someone's got to sell it. Someone needs to install it. We all have to work together, understand each other, where they're coming from, how they're coming. And it keeps on being this finger pointing game. And that's not going to fly, but we're not going to go down that road. Go listen to an episode from a couple weeks back, and we went down that road. What I am going to do, I'm going to interrupt this real quick. I got a quick word from Johns Manville, and then we'll jump back into it. Not all foam boards have the high performance that GoBoard does. Johns Manville has been producing rigid foam boards for decades for commercial roofs. What does this mean for flooring and shower applications if they aren't exposed to the same harsh elements that a roof is? If it's good enough for a commercial roof, it's good enough for your flooring, countertop, or shower project, especially when it's at a reasonable price. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. All right, Michael, we're gonna steer this ship back a little bit. So we're talking about, we need to get some numbers together. We need to study them. We need to be able to. We want to operate on a margin, not a markup. You can have your margin negotiated with you of like, where can I truly operate based on volume? And so how do I even go about starting to figure out what percent margin I need to really,
there you go. Sorry.
Back. Okay. Sorry. How do we start figuring out what percent margin we even need to be operating at, right? If this traditional, like 35% was just kind of how it was done. But now I go into there's a really big group on Facebook for a guy that runs coaching programs and all this stuff. And he's like, materials and labor times 2, whatever your materials are and your labor are times 2. Right. So it's a 50% gross profit margin. He's like, bare minimum, you're not going to be profitable and be able to grow your company if you're not at that number. And he's essentially correct, at least for a small guy to get going. But how do we even start determining where can I scale things back, right? If I have enough volume, how do I know when I can start figuring out, can I be at 45 and still make these numbers? Can I be at a 40 and make this?
I need to ask you a question here, because we're talking about a scenario about margins and where do you need to be? Who are we speaking about? A person that's in your business that's doing both currently? Or are we speaking about a flooring installer that's working literally out of his truck?
I think most of the audience is an installer, chucking a truck.
Okay.
And so that's generally who I'm speaking to get them, what's this next level, right? Can you go find a shop like I did and open it and start selling materials and make a little extra and control what you're touching, right? Like it's always about how do we get from, look, I'm sick of being a subcontractor, or even as a subcontractor, figuring out how do I go and negotiate the rates, right? So where do I even begin to figure out how can I manipulate the profit margins for me to be successful at labor, even as like a one-man crew?
Well, I'm not trying to distract from this either, but if we're talking about an average guy that's trying to get into business, and quite frankly, most of them are starting off in the vinyl plank laminate type of world.
Yes.
I had massive amounts of installers that came into Salt Lake City that couldn't do anything else. They were good at that.
Yeah, nobody wants to do carpet anymore, so it's too hard, and nobody wants to do hardwood because it's dying because laminate and vinyl plank took over. So now we have a bunch of. Well, I hate to say it. Look, I will call, I will say it about myself. I'm an unskilled installer. I can't do carpet. I can't do sand and finish. I can't. If I wanted to go learn tile, I probably could, but I really can't. So I can click some floors together and I can stick some hardwood that's engineered in glue and slide it together. Like, the skill level isn't high. Now my knowledge of how to prep is high, but the skill level required to do the installation, look, I can teach the homeowners how to do it. I really could. It's not hard. Okay. The skill level required to do it is not hard.
There's YouTube videos.
Correct.
Here's the interesting part of that. In a sales call, though, the husband goes, I think I could do this myself. My response to him is, you absolutely can. Mm-hmm. But I do have a question for you, because it appears to me that your wife would like to have this done ASAP. And if you're going to do this weekend after weekend for a couple of months, how's that going to work out for you? We Correct. Can get in and out in 2 days. And the wife will always pick us over, because, come on, husbands are like, I've done this when I've been married to my wife over and over again. So to break this down into a basic place, first of all, a guy working on his own doesn't particularly have to concern himself about margins first.
Okay.
He needs to concern himself with, as you did. You say you need $1,100 a day.
Correct.
Here's what I know statistically in a bigger picture, that a guy in our world, the average installer was doing 300 square feet of click together floor a day.
Yep.
And he was able to tear out the carpet inside of that as well. And he was able to remove and replace baseboard mostly. You put furniture in the equation, this overlaps. So let's just leave it right there.
Yeah.
And in that, in our world, that guy was getting paid approximately $1.50 under our system. And I'll tell you why. This sounds low to you. For the laminate install, mm-hmm. He was getting paid 30 cents a square foot for the carpet. So he was getting about another $100 there.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So now we're at $400. Plus, then he was getting removing and replacing baseboard.
Well, it was $1.50, right? So he's
right.
Okay, so he's $4.50.
$4.50. Sorry, and then $5.50.
Yeah.
$100 for the carpet tear out.
Yep.
And then, of course, we pay them to dispose of it too, oftentimes in our world. So, mm-hmm. And then he removed and replaced baseboard, which was about 100 feet, and he got about another $150 there. So 0, 10, 1, he's at $700 a day.
Correct.
In our world, doing that type of productivity. Now, if the job is 1,200 square feet, essentially, probably about 4 days.
Yes.
But that number then exponentially increases with that circumstance. That's where they need to focus on, and then pricing. So now the next thing that happens with all installers, especially independently, they start working for a store. They go, well, you're paying me $1.50, but you guys are charging $2.20. Well, yeah, because that's what retailers do. What is the retailer doing for you? Because as you're doing this on your own, and I know you're selling material. So who's picking up the material?
Oh, well, I do it all, right? But there's a delivery fee. Everything has, for me, everything has a fee because I know it's my time. Like, I have to charge, right? I don't sell the material at cost and pass on the savings to my client to win the project, because there's liability in handling the product. There's liability in touching it to install it. There's liability in what if the manufacturer doesn't back the warranty, even though I do everything correctly. I have to be able to cover it. So everything for me gets the margin put on it so that I can cover my butt.
So as an installer working for Flooring Install America, mm-hmm. You never touched the product. Correct. And in fact, that product was delivered to that house 2 weeks before you ever arrived there. Not to mention, we made the customer buy all of your tongue and groove glue. We made them buy all of the cleats, all mm-hmm. of the staples, mm-hmm. all of the moldings, everything that you can possibly imagine. And sometimes, if it was Koa, we'd make them buy saw blades for your saws. So in that pricing, an installer gets his work order, line item. This is precisely what you're doing. Mm-hmm. We double check that job. We send them out to that job, and all the product is on the job and acclimated and ready to go. They're ready to go to work, period, end of story. That's it, every single day. Now, there's value to that too, and hence Correct. Then that price sounds low. What you're doing for a living, you should be getting retail. Absolutely, because you're doing all the running. And by the way, do you calculate those hours? Because it's a lot with what you're doing.
Well, it's kind of built into the the
You're
overall
getting paid
equation,
for it.
right? Correct.
Right.
I'm making enough, but and I understand that when you go and work for a retailer and you're being handed a work order, you're generally, you didn't do the advertising. You didn't have to do the legwork to go get the project. You didn't have to go look at 5 to land 1 or 5 to land 2, whatever, your ratio is going to be. And so you don't have those overhead costs. I 100% agree it should be low. Or it should be a slightly lower pay, especially if you're having them provide things, right? If I'm not having to go and buy the caulking and the nails and all of these little things that cost me money, right? I'm going and having to buy a box of brad nails every 2-3 projects that baseboards are going up on a larger project. Okay. That's $10 a box.
Right.
It adds up over time, right? I got to go buy a box of caulking. So if all that stuff's being provided, I don't need that extra money that I'm accommodating for myself. Okay. So 700 versus 1100, that's not that far off. I've seen it where it's 1100 and the guy's walking away with 350. That I got a problem with. So
now hang on,
but
because we had plenty of installers that, and this was great. Really qualified guys. Some guys, even in my age group, that wanted to work, and they only did 200 square feet a day.
mm-hmm.
And that amount of money during the course of a day, and they did a great job, and the customers loved them. And that's fine. Because again, expectations, exceeding them. How long will this job take? It could take as much as 8 days, and we'd finish it in 6.
Yep.
Right? Okay, so that was always the case. And see, all of that comes into play. But from a margin standpoint, $1.50 is better than $2. If you're going to literally, practically just going and picking up the hardwood and having to deliver it to the house 2 weeks before, and literally do moisture testing and guarantee the acclimation, et cetera, $1.50 is better in some cases. Now, the guys that are wanting to sell product, that's where it gets interesting, because this is then when, or labor, by the way, if they're going to hire guys, they got to figure out where they got to be. And in licensed states, again, the only way you can do piecework with an employee, well, you can, period, point blank. They will end up being part-time for you, but I can take that same job we're talking about of 300 square feet of laminate and offer wages to an employee piecework and take the taxes out and, of course, pay their payroll taxes, et cetera. It's a little complicated, but it can be done. But in licensed states, and we've done this in California, because we really had no choice, because nobody had a license that we could get into the system, right?
Yeah.
So we tried this. It wasn't very effective, to be honest with you. It's kind of turned non-profitable, if you will.
Well, the problem with it is nobody believes that they can be successful as an employee, because they all think they're not going to make good money hourly and they're going to have to drag their butt on the clock. Where for me, it's, if you can produce X, I can pay you Y. It's as long as you don't need piecework from me. Like, I will pay you the same. You just need to go produce. And I don't know that a lot of people don't have a good enough mindset for that. And so to find a way to pay piecework, even then they still think they're getting cheated, because they don't have the same numbers coming in, because you're withholding taxes from them and you're doing all these things. And like, well, but I would have gotten this much on my own. And like, guys, you got to break it down for them, because they don't understand. It's, show them the numbers, show them how they work. Like, seriously, if you can find a way to pay a piecework to an employee, and he's going to argue that you're taking advantage of him, it's not the case, because you're putting in money into the pot that he would have to do. I think that a lot of times guys are like, oh, well, I'm going to do $320,000 for the year, and you're only offering me $100,000. Well, okay, yes, but once again, you're no longer having to guarantee the work, right? I'm going to handle that, so that you don't get that profit anymore, because I'm going to stand behind the work and warranty it, not you. You don't have to pay the license. You don't have to pay the insurance. You're going to get a truck provided for you. All the tools are provided for you. All of these expenses that you think that $320,000 gross revenue was doing for you, and that's the number, what were you really paying yourself? I bet you in a lot of examples, I could give someone a $100,000 a year total compensation package or higher, and they might have only been walking away at the end of the year with 80. And now we can actually get them paid more because someone else is managing the numbers in a better way to help everybody succeed better. And that's
Yes.
why we need to understand the numbers. Is like you think the gross revenue is your number, and it's not. Like, how much did you actually keep? And most of them can't even tell you because their paperwork's in a shoebox.
Yeah, there's a language that goes along with that too. So you're going to have gross income of X amount of dollars. Let's say on your one job at $1,100 in one day. That's your gross income, right?
Correct.
Okay, your gross profit, completely separate number. And then your net profit is a completely separate number as well.
Yes.
You follow me? So this is the beginning, which each installer, if they set this up in such a way that it is a legitimate business, as if it was an S corp. Number one, they're going to need a program, whatever it is. They could use an Excel sheet, but most people can't navigate that anyway. But the truth is, QuickBooks is a great program. QFloors has a great program. RFMS is way out of the league for installers, quite frankly, probably because of pricing. I see Floors apps out there too, whatever. You've got to have an accounting program, period. I think Foursquare even has one right now that could be used for this.
Okay.
But they need to line item their job tasks, right? And then through this, they're going to pay themselves through this company. So therefore, they're going to develop this model that says, I just took in $1,100 in a day. I'm paying myself wages of whatever, $50,000 a year. So therefore, you get $1,000 in the week. The rest of the money remains inside of your system, the money that you pay for your gas, the money that you pay for your glue or whatever else you buy becomes expense. And at the end of that, you end up with net profit.
Yes.
Now, the way those numbers should work is that your gross profit margin from what you pay yourself compared to what your total is should be 35%. That's a healthy business. At the end of all of that, all of the expenses that you have incurred with your insurance, your bond, all of the other things should be no more than 25, and you end up as a healthy business with a 10% net profit at the end of the year. Okay? Now, there's one other equation that comes into that, is that there's what they call returns and allowances. And J.C. Penney's uses that column to find out how many pairs of Levi's were brought back, to find out what they were doing wrong in their system. In our business, returns and allowances means how much money are you spending to repair, go back, explain to how much money did you spend to repair jobs? What went sideways? And that, as a healthy business, and you document this in your system.
Yes.
I had to go out and fix this thing, and I had to drive 45 miles, and it cost me gas, or I had to pay another installer to go fix it. That goes in that column of returns and allowances. So at the end of the year, you can look at this, or the end of a month, and go, uh-oh, it's 6%. You're failing. If it is 6% of your gross income, you are failing miserably, and this is not looking good. If it is below 3%, you're kind of a gold star company.
Okay.
And that is real. And for everybody to digest that. And again, a lot of these guys are going to go out, wow, okay, I just became an installer and I just made $1,000 this week. And the truth is we're all the same. Let's go to the bar and buy everybody drinks. All right, sure. But you got to get your life in order. And the truth is it's been honing in on us. When I was a kid, I was working commercial projects with my father, medical centers, this kind of stuff. And we would be out there installing, and the guy that sold these projects Next thing you know, you hear these motorcycles coming up. Hell's Angels were arriving in droves, and they were in there installing carpet, literally, and then got paid and gone. You'd never see them again, right? Maybe on the next project next year.
Yeah.
So that was I'm not saying Hell's Angels are bad guys, by the way. They were good installers, actually. But they just wanted the money. And they wanted to get out of it. We need to make ourselves, and it's come a long way. Installers are an integral part of the process. We need to be confident. We need to be reputable. We need to say what we do what we say, and literally get ourselves organized so we understand the business the same way that retailers do.
Well, let's be honest. A lot of the retailers don't even understand the business.
Well, that is true. There is a lot of money.
There's
a lot that do, though.
A lot of businesses, a lot of businesses all across the board, I don't care what you're doing, are making money by accident. That's a given, right?
That's kind of true. That can be true. You know, I think this is what's interesting about the new blood too, because Todd Saunders in particular, who self-proclaims that he knew nothing about this business and just entered in this like several years ago. But interestingly enough, he's doing his best to understand and learn it and try to get his arms wrapped around it, right?
Yes.
But he's coming at it. He's standing on a table on that side of the room. You and I are standing on a table on this side of the room. And then we have other people that are standing on the table. It's just a flat out different perspective. There is nothing that could hurt to have that different perspective. It's going to change all around going, oh my God, let me come over there and stand on your table. I want to see what it looks like over there.
Correct.
And that is cool. That is very cool.
Well, I think
a lot of people are doing that.
Well, you having been raised in the industry, right? I'm 7.5 years in, right? I started at 32. And, I chose to be here. I think a lot of people fall into it. They fall into it young. They feel stuck. I've seen a lot of disgruntled, quote unquote, old guys. And
I'm not one of them.
No, you are not. And I appreciate that. I have
no hair on my knees either, by the way. So there.
There are a lot of perspectives, and I was able to come in with a fresh perspective from, okay, I'm an adult. I have a view on the world and how things work, and this is where I want to be. I got taken advantage of in the reality television world as a subcontractor, and when I came into this realm and people wanted to use me as a subcontractor, I had a lot of knowledge to challenge business owners about how that worked. And they had no idea what I was talking about. They were like, but that's not how that works. And I was like, yes, actually it is. Legally, this is how it has to work for me to. And they were just like, no, I got to go talk to my tax guy. And then they come back and be like, oh shit, he's right. Like, how did he know this? It's because I was just as much as people are illegally classified in construction, the reality television world is just as bad. It is. We're gonna 1099 you. You're an independent contractor. However, we're paying for your hotel, your airfare, and we're gonna tell you when to show up, how long you work, when you're eating lunch. They control everything, but you're an independent contractor, and they do it because it's too expensive for them to put you on payroll for a 6-week television show, pull you off of payroll, and now they've essentially laid off the entire crew. So it's going to screw up.
Not to mention unemployment stuff.
That's correct. It would make right. Their unemployment rates would be through the roof because they're constantly, we're going to bring on 30 people, we're going to fire 30 people. We're going to bring on 30 people, we're going to fire 30 people. So, look, I get how to play the game. I know why they do it. It's still not right because one of the years I had like 15 1099s come in and 10 W-2s. I filled out that much start paperwork, and then I had to figure out how to file. My wife figured it out. I didn't. I was out busy.
How to file your quarterly taxes?
No. I wasn't even like responsible enough to be doing quarterlies. I had to file in like 7 states, and then my federal. But then I had to keep track of it, right? I had to actually know like how many companies that I work for this year. Did I get everything I was owed? It was just a hot mess, and so. It's a little bit easier when it's one thing, but there's a reason that we need to be aware of what we're doing and how to run the business, and that these different perspectives matter, right? I guess to get back to it, like, I was able to come into this industry with an outside perspective and say, I don't like what I see. I want to go about running this completely differently. And that's where this show kind of sprung from. Was I was like, whoa, this isn't right. Like, we need to get some information out there. We need to educate some people. And my view is very different from retailers that have been in business for 20 years. It's very different from people that have been installing for 30, 40 years. And that's okay, because I love having the conversation saying, you know what, I actually like that bit of information. I can take that. No, I still disagree with that. I think something can be improved in that arena. And it gives us the chance to talk about it, go through it, and start building these bridges that need to exist between retailers, manufacturers, and installers to have the conversations. And that's
agreed.
What really matters.
I do agree with that. The interesting, there's pockets. I worked in the deserts, not far from you, actually, Palm Springs area, where there's little pockets of these little flooring retailers that exist out there that are kind of peeling off cash on the side, this and that, and hiring installers this way. And okay, and they get away with it because the contractors board doesn't get out there that much. So at the end of the day, there's no, and again, I don't object. If everything can be that way, I'm good. But even playing field, if I'm going to spend thousands of dollars getting a contractor's license in California, and I'm paying for the bonds and the insurance, and I'm above board here, I don't want these guys coming around the corner and stealing my jobs on the side. It makes it hard to do business, right?
I agree.
So even playing field. And I think that's important across the board. But I think everything needs to be in this industry, from retailers all the way down to installers and manufacturers, transparent. And that is not the case a lot.
Yes.
Meaning that you as an installer needs to understand that if you're going to work for a retailer, yes, they're going to make a margin on your labor, period, because that's the way business is conducted. And you embrace that. At the same time, I think transparency to customers about what the hell's going on. I personally object to people throwing these big fat numbers at customers and saying it's $8,500 to do your whole project. The customer goes, great, let's do that. And then they turn around and say, well, we're going to give you, Kyle, $3,000. And then you go out there and you start installing in the family room because it wasn't clear, and the family room wasn't included. Right? Line items. Come on, let's be transparent. Let's show the customer that we're going to charge them for cutting door jambs. We're going to charge them for the baseboard. We're going to charge them for undercutting a fireplace. Show them this stuff. And the interesting thing is, the only price that a customer ever argues about is the advertised basic install rate. They saw Home Depot say they'll do this for $1.99. You want $2.29. Why? So put it to $1.99 and get 50 cents more in tearing out carpet. They've never asked how much that costs. Seriously. I can get more money tearing out carpet than installers get for installing it.
I know I do.
Right.
So I've had that. I've talked about it.
And so everybody think through what they're doing here, because your last interview that we were talking about earlier, and they're not wrong. The truth is, the how much question is the first question a customer has. Is it the information that they really want? No, not exactly. They want a lot more information, but they do want to know how much. And at the end of the day, they don't care about the square footage price. They want to know how much is that material and the labor going to cost me, and I'm in a hurry, so when can you do it?
Yeah.
In that order. End of story. And then color and style.
Yes.
The industry starts with color and style, and then says, my first objective is to get an appointment in your home. Okay, where's the approach, qualifying, close here? Strange. But yeah, the younger guys, look, starting off, first of all, they need to know how to snap together floors if that's what they're going to do, because you can make a great living just doing vinyl plank right now. Truthfully.
Yes, you can. I do it.
They need to learn how to pull off baseboard, clean the caulking off it, pull the nails out, drop them on the floor, put the baseboard aside, gently take off that baseboard. Don't break it. Let the customers know they're going to have to paint it and caulk it after you're done. cut out some of that carpet, get rid of it, and then ultimately have a program. Come on, most of these kids today that are going to get into this business, and I call them kids because I'm older, right? You're a kid to me.
I get it.
You need to document precisely what you're doing every day, because this information that you accumulate is going to be how you run your business a month from now and 2 months from now, and it empowers you. It literally empowers you.
Look, if that's the only thing you take away from this, is that you need to be documenting what you do in a day. And I don't think what Michael's saying is that it's just documenting, I removed this much of this or that much of that, or I put in this much of this product. Document procedures, right? What were the steps you took in how you did the tasks as well, right? If we're going to document everything, it needs to be repeatable, especially if you want to grow and expand. I have to be able to tell somebody else how to do it. And I think that's where a lot of the smaller guys are lacking. And so I guess what we've kind of learned is, like, as a small operator, if it's just kind of me doing my thing, man in a van, I don't necessarily need to be so much concerned about margins as a larger company, but I'm not going to be able to start calculating out margins as I add to my team. What does it cost me to have an employee on payroll and going and doing projects for me that I can lay out and have an expectation of this shouldn't take them more than 16 hours. So that's a conversation to be had with them. This project shouldn't take you more than 2 days. I need you to be done in 2 days. If you get it done faster, maybe there's a bonus for you, right? You can come up with a bonus structure. But now, knowing that it should take them 2 days, what do you need your company to operate on, and how much can you afford to pay to them, right? And then now you can start figuring out margins of what does it cost you to operate the business when you're not the one out there doing the labor. And so it's baby steps, but please stop talking about markup. We don't do markup. Okay.
Eliminate that.
I don't.
A markup is when you've grown taller and you mark it on the wall, I think.
I shouldn't say this. Okay. You can work with markup if you understand that you need to operate on margins and you're going to use the proper converted number to do markup. If you want to operate at a 50% gross profit margin, then you can multiply everything by 2. But you need to understand why that works. Okay?
Right.
Learn the numbers, find a conversion chart, know the difference. Okay? We are not marking things up. We only operate our business on a gross profit margin, and that gives us new numbers to figure out and work with. And then now we can go and we can work backwards and start saying, okay, I have this much profit left and I have to pay, this person in the office this kind of salary and this, and I estimate this amount of work per year. Like, can I actually start making this company grow and work? And you're going to know, because you'll find out real quick how much money there's going to be left over once you start putting in fixed costs. And if there's not enough, you're not charging enough. So you're going to have to adjust the number.
Yeah, there's one other thing that goes on out there that I have to voice this right now. Stop saying, well, I don't make any money. Okay, this is nonsense. Each and every one of us, we are in business to make money. Mm-hmm. And do it kindly. But the guy the installer that hires a helper, and the guy going, well, you're making a lot of money. You mentioned this earlier. Yes, I do. It looks like I'm making a lot of money. But I am going to make money, period, end of story. And you are too. And stop looking at the big number. And either you like what you're doing for the price I'm paying you, or we can negotiate something new. But stop looking at the numbers that are being circulated out there. That's one thing that is very important. If you're going to work for a retailer, you have no clue what their costs are. They got a building, they got payroll, they got all the stuff. At the end of the day, if they're making a lot of money, good. That means that you're going to have more jobs coming.
I'd hope so. But
me too.
Don't stop going in and I can't repeat this on this show enough. Stop going in and saying, how much do you pay? You are a subcontractor. You're running a business. Go offer them a sit down and say, my question would be, and I don't want
It's
to do
horse
this because I
trading,
want to
for
work
God's
for
sake.
myself. What I want to do is I'm going to walk in. I would tell you to walk into the retailer and say, okay, are you looking for any installers right now? The answer is probably we're always looking, and we just, we can determine that. And then my next question would be, what is your biggest complaint with the current crews you're subcontracting to? Now get them talking about their issues, right? Businesses solve problems. That's all businesses do. We solve problems. We sell time to solve problems. So find out what their problem is. Now come up with a solution, present them a better offer than they're currently getting, and then negotiate your rates for what you want. Okay. So if you need $2 a square foot and you can provide a better service, they may take a smaller margin on you because you're going to create less callbacks. You're going to get them more 5-star reviews. How can you provide a better service to get them to want to pay you more? Or you can convince them that, hey, I'm so worth it. You need to sell at a higher margin than you currently are so you can afford me. Stop asking them what they pay.
Exactly.
They can't,
No,
legally,
yeah,
they can't dictate the price anyways. So it's absolutely absurd.
No, you have to agree to it. They're going to say, look, I'm only paying 75 cents for laminate. And you go, okay. Believe me, they're going to get you to sign something that you agreed to that, a contract, if
Correct.
you will. That's what it is, right? And there's a lot of other parameters because a basic install is going to include, for example, sweeping the floor. Well, yeah, that makes sense. You would want to sweep the floor before you put the floor down, right?
Correct.
So all of this it's all the detail. The devil is in the details across the board.
Yes.
And you are in business for yourself if you choose to be a subcontractor. So behave like it and negotiate like it and be kind and courteous. That it's simple, really. And horse trading is fun. Embrace that too. Now I want $6 a square foot for doing laminate. Oh, well, we don't pay that much. Well, how much do you pay then? How much would you like to pay? Where are we going here? Let's horse trade. That's fun. Come on. I love this kind of stuff. I still do.
Yeah. No, it's great. All right. Any closing thoughts? Something we didn't hit on that we should have?
No, well, I think we covered a lot of ground there. I hope it's comprehensible at the end of it all. But I feel for the guys. Look, you've got me advertised on there. I'm happy to talk to installers at any given moment. Literally, this has been my life, and I have managed jobs over the phone. If they're on a job and they're struggling, call me. I'll help them through it. If the adhesive's not working, whatever. I have a lot of knowledge, but I'm happy to be out there and help with this part of it because the industry, I think it has been a little bit overlooked. The industry needs installers, and they need installers. This relationship needs to gel.
Yes.
Absolutely needs to gel.
We definitely need installers. We need young installers. We need educated young installers, not just on trade skills, but on business skills.
On the business and actually behavior. Right?
That as well. Yes. We need to be able to go make clients happy. We need to perform well in their home, but then we need to go and have the proper discussions with our counterparts in the industry. You need to go to trade shows and talk with the manufacturers and look at products, and you need to go talk to the retailers if you just want to subcontract and get handed a work order, and go understand what the salespeople go through. I've talked about it before. I 100% agree. There's a huge need for new blood, but let's show them a better path than what we were shown. And change.
Yeah,
we need to push our industry forward, not keep it where it's at. There's no reason that it should still feel like in my conversations that the industry still in the 70s and 80s. It just hasn't changed very much. There's technology that's come out. There's new products that have come out, but it's stagnant. Let's move forward, folks.
Right. Well, okay. So the last thing I have to say on that subject is that frustration creates anger, creates resentment, and so on. And I think there's an element of frustration that there's not a lot of communication going on in between the two, and hence then that can be eliminated. Frustration can be gone simply by having a conversation and getting an understanding for both sides of that equation.
Yes.
And it will make it better for the customer. If everybody's on the same page, and the customer says something to you that you know is not correct, you say, that's not entirely accurate. And you go back to your ally, which is the retailer, and have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
to straighten that out and let that be straightened out rather than sometimes the way that unfolds. I heard somebody say somebody walked off a job because of. I'd like to hear the rest of that story from the installer. Why did you walk off the job?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to hear that, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, I hear the installer side all the time. I don't hear the retailer side, right? Because
Right.
I'm not
Well,
necessarily seeing that. But it's if I'm look, you said it right. The retailer should be my ally, and the manufacturer should be the ally of the retailer.
that's
But they
true.
should be my ally as well. They should back me up. They should provide training for me, help educate me, help me keep me up to date, right? Once again, we all need to work together. And so that open line of communication needs to be there so that everyone can move forward. It's not retailers versus manufacturers versus installers in this like three-way battle. What it is
It is
it's
not
a
a versus.
flooring industry versus if I was going to pose it, like pit us against anybody, it's a flooring industry versus the home, like the clientele, right? It's against builders. It's against so many other things other than infighting within our own industry. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like if I wanted to argue anything, I would argue that national chain home builders have commoditized flooring so badly that it's not respected as an art or craft anymore, and it's diluted what people will pay for it. That would be
right.
my
Well,
argument. If I was going to argue anything in like if we're going to pit the flooring industry against somebody, it would be that national home builders have commoditized our trade.
right. Well, I'm going to add something to that equation because I'll bet you don't know this. The reason for that mostly is because of cost analysis, but that from their standpoint. But FHA has requirements to have flooring on the floor before a house is sold, correct?
You're right, which means I'm
Right.
important.
Well, you are important, but at the same time, that flooring that is put on those floors is green, 13-ounce carpet or this vinyl thing. And quite frankly, it's not a big trick to install this. So hence, then they can hire less expensive, less qualified installers to get that done in that building business, unless these are $1 million homes where they have a design center where they're actually selling upgrades, which is not the price of the home the way it was. It's another $80 a month on your payment to get these upgrades, of which then they hire the better guys. So that's a movement that is admirable, to be honest with you, because it was brilliant to set up a design center in a garage, first of all, so they can sell upgrades to appliances and things. So that whole world it worked in that world forever. And I thought it was brilliant that they did it. But it was the rules and regulations because I would prefer to buy a house with no flooring. I'm a flooring guy.
Correct.
I can't.
Me too. I would. I've gone and done projects for homeowners where it's, hey, we're closing on this day. We want you to come in and rip everything out, and we want you to put this in.
You're right.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Hey, I'm happy to do it. Brand new house. They haven't even lived in it one day yet. And I just go in, I rip everything out, I put something new in. But because it's so production oriented and it's so cost driven. One, I know that builders make a ton on flooring. It's the margins for them are disgusting.
They try.
And
Of course they do.
then the labor is just poorly done that it can't, like, there's no fighting from the guys doing that because they would never get anything done. The prep work is non-existent on any floor that gets vinyl plank or tile. It's just throw it in and be done with it. And so it's just, and those guys can't fight back. They can't be like, oh, we got to do it, because they'll just say, well, the next guys will do it. And it's true, they will. But
well, there will be somebody out there that will do it, and you can choose your world. In fact, you have currently, right?
Yes, correct. I
By the
do
way,
residential
just
remodel only.
One point. Apparently, we all chose to be born in America, which is a capitalistic society. So therefore, here we are. So And I'm a half glass full kind of guy, constantly.
Look,
There are solutions for everything.
yes, there are. And you can kind of choose your own adventure. Like we have free will. So you don't have to work in that environment. But once again, it comes down to these guys think they want to control their own destiny, and that's what they know. And that's what I'm trying to get people to go outside of. You can learn to go sell to homeowners direct. We don't have to do production work. You can go learn. If I wanted to get into commercial, I could go learn how to bid commercial work and find a crew and start doing that. It doesn't interest me. I found something I'm good at. I want to stay in that lane. So learn your business. It's not just learning a trade. Okay. I think we can kind of end it here. Learn your trade and know it well, continue to evolve, but you have to learn your business. And everyone can run a different business. I may need to operate at a 40% gross profit margin. You might be able to do it at 37.2. I don't care. Know your business and worry about your numbers. I stop asking what the going rate is. The going rate is what it costs you to be profitable. Okay? That's the going rate.
That is the going rate. Exactly. You're the only podcast guy installer that I know currently, by the way. So you are unique, Kyle.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Which is very cool.
I appreciate it, man. It was, it was born out of, look, if I needed it, somebody else needed it. I was smart enough to know that. So, all right.
Thank
folks,
you for today.
Hey, thank you. I very much appreciate your time, your insights on the industry. Folks, go, if you want to add some estimates to your website and let people kind of get a rough quote, you can check out Virtual Estimates now. Let's see. Go check out flooracademypod.com. Go join the Facebook group. You can go to the shop on the website, pick up a hoodie, a t-shirt. There's you got the fanny packs, we got beanies, get a regular hat. We got all kinds of fun stuff. Go check it out. Help support the show. You can also help support the show at patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping the content to continue to get produced. And I think that'll do it. We got a quick word from Tice. The in-person services event has now concluded in Las Vegas, and man, did you guys miss an excellent event. Did you know that Tice has a smart event on Facebook and access stays open all year? The Tice Live Virtual Event Vegas Edition is home to product videos and in-booth product interviews from the show floor, including my 2 sessions on Myth-Busting Gen Z and Give Back to Get Back, event updates, and more. Floor Academy podcast listeners can access free by registering at intlsurfaceevent.com/register using promo code Kyle before February 28th. You only got a couple days left. If you're listening to this on the podcast, go get registered, get access to that Facebook group, check out all the great content from the show if you didn't make it out to Vegas, and we'll catch you next week.